Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm AndyRC and today I'm going to be checking out the Fatshark HDO2s. Now I know a couple of months ago many reviews of these goggles came out, but that's because Fatshark sent them out to certain people, and to this day I have never been sent anything from Fatshark to review. But ever since the Dominator V2 SDs, I've bought every single compact goggle that they have released, because whether you love or hate them, it's only recently that other companies have started to match or exceed their products and service. So perhaps I'll be able to add something, because unlike those first reviews, I haven't had a limited amount of time with them. I haven't been given a date as to which day and what time I must post the video. And these are the finished product, which is important, because when I bought the HDO V1s, they were made out of a completely different material than what was sent out to the reviewers, and caused a load of light leak which rendered them unusable. They rectified the issue, of course, and that's why I still support them. And I know a bunch of people are going to get triggered by this video, whether it's because you bought the HDO2s or have a different set of goggles that you are completely happy with. So this video isn't really for you. It's for those who are in the market for a new set of goggles and want to know the good and the bad. But before I go any further, I'm going to give out my usual FPV goggle disclaimer. FPV goggles are really difficult to review because we all have different shaped faces, different sized noses, and our eyes can be short or long-sighted and spaced differently apart. So I can only give my experience on those aspects of these goggles, which may be completely different to your experience. So I always encourage people to try and find a local FPV group like I did using Facebook, or go and travel to a drone event where there will be an abundance of people willing to let you try them out. So when I saw the initial reviews of the HDO2s, my first thoughts were that these are the goggles we have been wanting Fatshark to make from the get-go. At first I dismissed getting them because I have the HDO V1s, and for making videos they weren't going to be bringing anything new to the table, because the DVR is the same as the V1s other than having the rapid fire firmware upgraded, and I can still use all of the same receiver modules. But as a fan of the hobby, I just had to have them. So first of all, let's address the elephant in the room. Why hasn't the DVR changed to the 720p 60 FPS DVR that they put in the Scout FPV goggles and the AndyRC PowerPlay module? Well, Fatshark supposedly said that they didn't want to delay the release of the HDO2s any further by having to integrate the new DVR. When I release my review of the AndyRC PowerPlay in a few days' time, you might see why they perhaps didn't put it into their new flagship goggles. The problem that Fatshark has is that out of nowhere, DJI added HD 60 FPS analog recording to their digital HD goggles, and there doesn't seem to be any issues, although I do need to do some more testing before I can confirm that. Lucky for Fatshark, there are people out there that would not touch the DJI system if their life depended on it. So, as a supporter and owner of both, what is the benefit of the HDO2s? And for me, it comes down to simplicity. When I first started with the Fatshark Dominator SDV2s, I bitched and moaned that I'd spent 423 Great British pounds on goggles that didn't even come with a receiver module. The screens were the size of a postage stamp compared to the box goggles that I'd been wearing, and there weren't even any menus or a switchable aspect ratio. I actually thought that I bought some kind of fake, which is probably why I don't get put on Fatshark's reviewers list. But the HDO2s now have a big, clear 46-degree field of view, which is sharp edge to edge, and the screens are actually HD. Yes, despite their name, it's taken 5 versions of the HD series to meet an actual HD resolution of 1280 by 960. The IPD adjustment travel is the largest it's ever been, from 54 to 74 millimeters, and I no longer need to add diopters because they have a built-in focal adjustment toggle from A+2 prescription down to -6, which are independent to each other. So if you are like me and have one eye more wonky than the other, then it's not a problem. Although, as a caveat, if you have a prescription outside of those figures and require special diopters or have extreme astigmatism, this can be seen as a downside because there's no room to add an additional diopter like their previous models. Now, I personally do have astigmatism, and I still get a perfect view, but don't take my word for it and go and buy them because of that, as there's no guarantee you will have the same experience. Make sure that you can find someone who has a pair and will let you try them. They have added a small menu which is just a long press down of the brightness and contrast joystick, and they've just added 3 more settings which are sharpness, saturation and power. Now power is how bright the screens go opposed to the brightness of the image from the camera, but I haven't needed to touch any of those settings. I've only ever adjusted the brightness and contrast moving the joystick left to right or up and down, just like on all of their other previous versions. And to start the DVR recording, which you should do for every flight in case you crash and the model slings its battery, it's the same as all of the other Fatshark goggles. So a long press down of the DVR will activate the DVR, which is indicated by the center red LED going solid, and then a single press will start and stop the recording and the red LED will start blinking. Now, I know a lot of people don't like the red LED in the center, but I guess that's a personal preference thing. I like it because it leaves nothing on the screen and I can't see it while I'm flying, but if I look to my far left or right, I can see it flashing. Perhaps people with different shaped faces see it all of the time, and I can see why that would be annoying. Or maybe you can't see it at all, but it works for me. The micro SD card placement, on the other hand, I tolerate, but I'd rather it was easier to access. For a while now, the HD series have a built-in supercap, so you don't have to worry about stopping the recording if you accidentally pull your battery. And the DVR's job originally was put there in case you lost your model, so the playback functions where you can fast forward and rewind or pause are all the same as all of the other goggles, and it's very simple to use when you are stressing out in the field. So to conclude, out of all of the FPV goggles I've ever tested, which is a lot, I can guarantee I can get in the air with the DVR recording quicker with the Fatsharks than any other goggle on the market. And after realizing how important this is to me personally, it's what makes these the best analog FPV goggle. And before you start hammering the keyboard, I understand that everyone has their own reasons and priorities why what I just said might sound like total nonsense to you. So before I step into your shoes, let me just mention a couple of other welcome features that should have been implemented to the Fatshark goggles a long time ago. Short presses of the brightness and contrast joystick cycles through 4:3 to 16:9 aspect ratios, and also HDMI, which is also in a 16:9 aspect ratio. Why has it taken this long? Well, Fatshark say 16:9 is a waste of pixels, which is why they have never done it. And they are right, but some people like to fly quads with a 4:3 aspect ratio for the extra vertical field of view, but I don't think they realized until now that people who fly quads sometimes like to fly fixed wing as well with a 16:9 camera because they prefer the horizontal field of view. And I'm glad that the HDMI aspect ratio is in 16:9 because on the HDO-V1s it wasn't, and most HDMI sources are natively 16:9. But with FPV going digital last year, I'd like to have seen a 4:3 HDMI aspect ratio option as well, because you never know what the future holds. And yes, technically it's letterboxing the image to get the 16:9 aspect ratio, but because the the panels are OLED, you can't see the letterboxing because the darks are so dark. You are losing field of view in 16:9 mode, but it's still very usable due to the large field of view, and it's only cropping off the top and the bottom, so you are still retaining the horizontal field of view. There's no 3D support though, but I don't think the last version had it either. The next one isn't something I use, but it's important to mention that the headphone jack is now in stereo, so there's no need to do any weird mods if you are a single or double earpiece or headphone user. So all of those things are pretty positive, but now let's take a look at some of the not so good things. One of the most important must-haves with a compact FPV goggle, or any goggle for that matter, is a good fitment to your face. This is a tricky one because, as I said earlier, everyone's faces are different. But for people with a Western face, Fatshark have always fitted me well, and I don't often hear people complaining about them not fitting well in general, and I put that down to the fact that the faceplate and ergonomics haven't changed over the course of all of their different versions, and many people criticize Fatshark for that and say that they should innovate rather than producing the same shell every time. And at a glance, the HDO2s look like the same shell and faceplate as all of their other goggles, with some cutouts underneath for the extra focal adjustment. But you would be wrong in thinking that, because if you look at the HDO V1s from the front and then compare them with the HDO2s, the nose cutout isn't as deep. Now, maybe this won't cause you a problem, but for the first time ever, a pair of Fatsharks are putting pressure on my nose when all other previous versions didn't do that. It's not to a painful degree, but it's something that did disappoint me. At a guess, I imagine it's either the larger IPD adjustment or focal adjustment that's responsible for having less space for the same nose cutout size. That's not the only problem with the fitment for me though. You get given two faux leather face pads. One is thicker than the other, and they've included these Velcro wedges, which other goggle manufacturers have started to include. The idea is that if you have a rounder face, then you can either use both or just one to get a better fitment. But for me and some of my friends that have tried these goggles, unless you are a child, these inserts aren't needed at all because the roundness of the faceplate hasn't changed when you compare them to previous versions. What has changed is the thickness of the faceplate at the bottom of the goggle. You can see how thin it is compared to the older model, and this is causing a massive amount of light leak from the underneath, and any other adult that I've asked to try them on has found exactly the same. Luckily there is a fix, but I don't know how long this is going to be an option because, as you can see, the faux leather pads get worn out on my HDO V1s. But to stop any light leak, I had to take the foam pad from my HD3s and stretch the foam down past the point of where the faceplate ends, and that stops the light leaking from underneath. I just hope that someone will continue to make these pads, because otherwise the light leak is pretty bad. The thinner foam also gets my face closer to the goggles and puts less pressure on my nose as well. I do have to give Fatshark some credit for making the inside of the goggles black, because that does stop any light leak coming from the front, but this new design means that you can't use the old face plates, so it's only the foam pads that you can retrofit thanks to the Velcro that they are still using. So on to the next one, and I don't like to mention prices in reviews because the video doesn't age well, but at the making of this video you can get the HDO2s for 390 quid or $500 from Banggood, and that's without a receiver module. You don't get given any of the accessories you used to get either, like an AV cable or a HDMI lead. You just get the goggles, an empty 18650 battery case, as well as the carry pouch, a wipe cloth, some stickers, and a card telling you where to download the manual from. And if you are committed to these goggles, it will be a bit pointless not to get the rapid fire module or the TBS Fusion to take advantage of a superior RF signal, which for me is a must when I'm flying around or inside bandos. And those modules will set you back at least $150. And then there's the antennas and the 18650 batteries, which when added together is pretty expensive when the DJI goggles are sitting right here. But the DJI goggles don't have OLED screens, and for the moment the analog feed is stuck in a 4:3 aspect ratio. But now I'm going to say something that is going to split a crowd, so if you don't agree, that's fine. As I said before, if you're happy with the goggles that you have, I can't argue if you disagree. I was a big advocate of trying to get OLED into FPV goggles, and it was a big improvement at the time. But when the HDO came out, we were just on the cusp of switching from CCD cameras to higher-end CMOS cameras, and the OLED screens brought out the contrast and finer details that were a washout with CCD cameras. However, the better sharpness and dynamic range of the CMOS cameras, in my opinion, made OLED screens less important. And I realized this when my HDOs had to be sent off to repair because I switched back to my HD3s to carry on with my videos, and the HD3s use LCD panels. So when the HDOs came back, they sat in their box for months because every camera coming out was using a CMOS sensor, and the benefit of OLED was negligible, and I was also getting a larger field of view with my HD3s. In fact, I only took the HDOs out of their box when the rapid fire module came along because I was too lazy to do the power mod neatly on my HD3s. So, are the HDO2 panels nicer than the HDO1 panels? Absolutely. It's a bigger field of view and a higher resolution, and the colours are better as well. Is OLED versus the LCD panels in the DJI goggles a game changer when it comes to analog? I'd say no, unless you are using CCD cameras, which they don't make the sensors for anymore. Then there's the power button. This one will also split a crowd. On the one hand, I think it's sad that Fatshark caved into the demands, because I always thought a power button on anything where you have to remove the battery to charge it anyways is a bit like having to put a key into a car and then turn the key, but then you have to press a button to start the car. Why can't the car just start when you turn the key? They haven't totally given up on the idea of not having a power button though, because out of the box it only turns the fan on or off. Or should I say, almost off. This is why I don't get sent stuff from Fatshark. The fan doesn't turn off completely, it just runs very slow, and when it does that it makes a sort of grinding noise, and to be fair, you can't hear it when you're outside, but the reason I mention it is because I use the Bruce Simpson method of ensuring that my goggles don't fog up by putting them on my forehead a few minutes before I fly, and they never fog up. I've been using goggles that have fans since about 2014, and not once have I ever needed to switch the fan on. But for those who are a fan of the fan, will see the fan now being built into the circuit as a good thing. You used to have to connect the balance cable from the battery into the faceplate, but now the balance cable just dangles around and scratches the goggles up. Anyways, for it to double up as a power button, you have to move a jumper in the second module bay. The SkyZone goggles also have the power and fan working off the same button, which I still don't understand. If you get it wrong while you're flying, then it's going to turn the goggles off. The next one isn't something I use, but it's important to mention. These goggles don't support head tracking out of the box. This is why I like to spend more time making my videos, because a big clue that these goggles don't support head tracking out of the box should be that there's no PS2 connection. There's this daft power button instead. If you do want to install a head tracker, you have to contact Fatshark support, who will sell you a HDO V1 board, which you'll have to retrofit into your HDO2s. You'll also have to solder the wires from the fan to the VBAT now that it's connected internally, and replace the power button with the PS2 connector. So if you are a head tracker user, then you either have the people who put pressure on Fatshark for a power button and an internal fan connection to blame for not having head tracker support out of the box, or Fatshark for not coming up with a better solution. I don't use either of those functions, so I'll let you come to your own conclusion. Oh, and some people are reporting that their eyelashes are brushing up against the eyepiece. I'm not getting that, but I suppose it depends on two things. The first one could be to do with your eye prescription. When you move the focal length, the lenses move closer or further away from your eyes. Or you could just have long eyelashes, in which case, I don't know, can you trim your eyelashes? Or, come on, just stop wearing mascara. So, I think I covered both sides there. Time will tell whether these will become my daily goggles. I need to do some more testing with the analog DJI DVR before I switch to those, because the better DVR quality could help with how I review cameras, because the low quality DVR in Fatsharks don't give a good enough representation of what I'm actually seeing through the goggles. So if you wish to get the HDO2s, then I'll put a link in the video description as well as a pinned comment. I'll leave you with a flight that I did using my KISS Alien and the HDO2s. The DVR will look exactly the same as all of the other flights that I've done with my KISS model, but I went out and flew with the HDO2s because I don't like to review a product without showing it in action. So as always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.
Those medical pills that push me over, I kill my fill 3 times a day. These ethanol fumes won't make me sober.